Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast after another Sunderland game. After the international break, a 3-1 away win against QPR. And as always, we'll get into what happened during the game, who scored the goals, the performance, and a brief look ahead to the next game, which is, of course, Blackburn away on Wednesday. But first and foremost, Kyle, that win against QPR makes it, I think that's unbeaten in our last 4, I think it is. Obviously, back-to-back wins after that 5-0 win against Southampton. And after an international break, after a 2-week break, it's always interesting to see whether you can keep the momentum that you've went into the break with. And we have this time.
Yeah, I think 2 of the most important games throughout the season is the last game before the transfer window and then the first game back. Because there's so much anticipation. And God, not the transfer window, sorry, the international window. I just hate the international break. It's just so long. Yeah. It just feels forever, especially after coming off such a big win at Southampton. Like the one thing, some people said, and I even said it too in a group chat, was just like, maybe this just came at a bad time, especially when we went down early, but turned out all right. But yeah, absolutely huge win to keep the momentum going. And another just stellar performance. And it's just, I just cannot get enough of watching this team. Like it's just, every week it just feels like a new player. Someone else steps up. You see a move from a player you wouldn't expect, and it's just fun. You can't ask for much more.
Yeah, and obviously it's not just the fact that it's a win after the international break, like I alluded to there. It's now 4 games unbeaten for Sunderland after what was a relatively tough start to the season, and things can only start to get better now. You've got players coming back from injury. Obviously, some new players that signed in January, Burstow and Auchichi, I'm still going to call him that, making the debut yesterday. So the squad's just going to get stronger. The players are going to keep gelling. And, all being well, like I said, things can only get better.
Yeah, as soon as I know the extent of Ekwa's injury, then I'll be able to really feel good about it. But, yeah. No, and that's, it just goes back. I don't want to be the one who's like, oh, Speakman, he's great, this and that, because I understand there's been some frustrations there. But I think the one thing that he's figured out, I would say, out of everybody except for the lad who went to Qatar, I'm already forgetting his name, but everybody's just settled right in, it seems. And I think they do that strategically by getting a couple of like young regional players, right? A couple of players from France, for example. Dewey is probably the outlier in that, he's probably the only Spanish speaking player. Maybe Ekwa knows Spanish as well. Who knows?
Mayenda as well.
Yeah. Oh, true. Right. And probably Tomato. It was Portuguese. It could be a little different, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's been a huge kind of key to the success. It's not just like random throwing darts at a random country and say, let's get one player from here, one player from there. You got to get players who can gel together kind of first in smaller groups. And then that kind of opens them up to the big group. And that's what you see. Yeah. I think it's Ashish is, just seems like he seems like he's been here all season, and that connection with Ba and a few of the other lads, it's been great. So credit to the team. It takes a lot. And it also says a lot about the manager and Tony to be able to manage different backgrounds, languages, play styles, and just have them all come together for kind of the common goal and empower them to say, here's what you do well, just go do it, go have fun.
Yeah. And not only the game itself, because there was quite a few things to talk about, it wasn't all plain swimming for Sunderland, because we actually went 1-0 down. And a bit of question mark over whether Sunderland should have had a free kick in the build-up to the goal. I think the ball goes over the top and Armstrong and Ballard kind of come together. Question mark over whether there was a push in the back for Ballard or not, but it wasn't given. A long throw comes into the box, doesn't get cleared particularly well, and it falls to Kenneth Powell on the edge of the box. And in fairness, it is a good finish. And, there's been goals we've conceded where you could say, oh, we should have done this better, we should have done that better, we should have closed them down, there was no one there. This is just, one of them that I don't think anything went particularly wrong. It was just a goal against the run of play, really, at the time.
It was very much a Gareth Ainsworth goal. You could kind of feel that they might be able. We started well. For the most part. Granted, it came pretty early, but I would say we started well. Definitely came across the run and play. It's just the dreaded long throw-in that just for some reason I feel like we always concede long throws somehow. So unfortunate, but overall I just felt I didn't worry me at all. Like I kind of knew at the absolute bare minimum we'd get a draw out of that because just the way we were playing and our history against Ainsworth. So it was one of those goals that happened. I was like, like the only thing I thought was, man, maybe the international break really came at a wrong time, and it, like I said, I don't think it did at the end of the day. But not an ideal start, but it wasn't anything different than the rest of the season where we tend to concede early. So, but yeah, overall, wasn't worried.
Yeah. And because it is a Gareth Ainsworth team, albeit QPR as opposed to Wickham, going 1-0 down away from home is probably, the worst case scenario, especially I think it was 12 minutes into the game. And, for the majority of the first half, including in the build up to that goal, Sunderland dominated possession, dominated the ball, kind of in the middle of the pitch and towards the final third without, creating too much. And, for the best part of about 46 minutes, it was turning to be one of them frustrating games where I think we talked about before the international break. If you go 1-0 down against a team like this, it is going to be frustrating, and it was.
Yep. And well, the one thing I noticed too, and it all kind of culminates into an event that happened shortly after, but I mean, you just knew the physicality, and it wasn't like I'm all for the game being physical, right? Like it's just like that's a part of the game, especially in the championship. I feel like we are physical in our own regard as well in certain positions and things like that. It was the type of tackles though that they were leaving in, that they were kind of shooting for. Essentially got them a goal as well. Little kind of the dark arts of shoving in the back when it's going out of bounds, things like that. And I just felt like the ref wasn't quite doing enough to. Not, you don't have to call everything, you don't have to baby it or anything, but, just kind of settle down. And then, of course, 2 or 3 minutes later, we had the incident, which I'm sure you'll get on to, but you could just feel something was kind of bubbling up. Even though they went up went up a goal, they still just kept really, really going after us in less than ideal ways. And like I said, it ended up biting them big time. So.
It did, and that is because former Sunderland midfielder Jack Corbett gets sent off, I think, at around the 22nd minute. And, there's loads of videos of it on Twitter. I said it at the time, and you can sense from the player reaction that it wasn't a good tackle. Somehow, some way, in some world, 99% of QPR fans are adamant that it was barely a yellow card. But unless I'm just missing something here, that is a blatant red card.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it was clear as day. And one thing I love too, like being a slightly newer fan. So since 2018, I've learned a decent amount about former players and history and things like that. But every now and then a new player comes up where I'm just like, I didn't know we hated this guy. And it didn't take long for him to, immediately jump on the list for me. But yeah, I didn't know kind of the history with Kovac and kind of how he was our player and then just kind of binned us off for Newcastle because he thought he was better than us or something. Is that kind of how that went down?
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, but either way, horrible tackle. I mean, it wasn't even close.
I mean, Ainsworth came out after the game and said that Job made the most of it. And I mean, just a bit of a lucrative comment, I think. Because I think, you've seen them tackles before where, that ends the season for Job.
Oh, easily. Oh, I mean, yeah, and that would put us in such a bind, because Job has been, while he didn't score, just his movement off the ball is phenomenal, and especially in front of the goal, the way he kind of drifts in behind defenders, and then has that striker's instinct. And he's not even a striker, right? Not a natural striker. The way he's able to get in there, he's long, he's got that reach as well, and yeah, an injury like that would have been devastating, with his development, with his overall process, probably his mentals as well. So thankfully it wasn't anything too serious. Ainsworth saying anyone makes the most out of anything is just the most hypocritical statement. He makes the most out of the top button on a shirt, let me tell you. So I think overall we're fortunate. And to be honest, like I thought that the red, as much as it's good to go up a man against just about any other team, I almost felt like I was like, man, is that going to be a bad thing for us? Because now they're going to just go ultra Ainsworth, and
I mean, especially at 1-0 down as well, they already go ultra Ainsworth, and then they go down to 10 minutes, it becomes, I don't even know.
Right, and well, and really, my mind went to like, like I said, I knew for a fact, regardless, we were at least going to get out of there with the draw. But I also wanted, like, I tune in every week, for a number of reasons. But I just wanted to watch the team play, kind of how they've been playing. And when you're up against a team that's just going to do 2 blocks of forward and just make it ugly and terrible to watch, you can't really get into your own rhythm either. But the adjustments that Tony made, and somebody posted the formation where we essentially, once we made some subs, especially later on in the game, the adjustments that Mowbray and Mike Dodds and the rest of the staff made to going up a man was phenomenal. So the only thing I said was, please get a goal before the half.
Yeah.
that was all I wanted.
And we did, because Jack Clark, albeit, I mean, he's going to claim it, and I think it has gone down as his goal. He gets the equaliser on the stroke of half-time, and the tale of the first kind of 3 or 4 games of the season for Sunderland was conceding deflections. This time we're on the receiving end, not the receiving end, the given end of a deflection. Is that the right way of putting it? I think so. I'm going to go with that anyway. Because Clark gets the ball, he hits it. I think it deflects off one defender, hits off Steve Cook, who pretty much heads the ball into his own net, makes it 1-1. And any time is a good time to score when you're 1-0 down, of course. But to get that goal on the stroke of half time, to give yourself the second half to go and chase the winner against a team that now, have to come in and attack you, is the perfect time.
Well, and not even that, because, while they technically had to attack us if they wanted to get a win, they're going to settle with the draw, but then they had to realize, oh my God, like now we're going to be going for the win. And like I said, the adjustments that we made to put more players on and all in the attacking third was huge. But Jack Clark, I'm really glad he got that goal too, because he did not start the game well at all. It was actually a really poor performance from a lot of people, But that just kind of shows where he's at mentally, which is he could, he'll do that same move down the wing 6, 7, 8, 9 times, and even if it doesn't come off to him or he's passing to the other team or whatever, he just keeps going. And, when he took that shot, I think there's 3 or 4 defenders who immediately were closing down on him. He still just takes the shot anyways. And that's what you like to see. Sometimes I feel we tried to pass it into the back of the net too often. Sometimes we just need to let it rip just right at the goal and hope for the best. And best case scenario this time. And finally, we were the deflectors, not the deflectees. I don't know if that's right, but
it's a good way of putting it.
It was nice. Yeah, it was nice for once.
Yeah. So that makes it 1-1 at half time. Sunderland come out the second half with, on level playing field in terms of the score, and obviously a man advantage against a pretty poor QPR team all in all. And, thankfully, Sunderland used that man advantage to their own, because they go and get the second goal. And, very similar to, a lot of the other goals we've scored this season. And not even just some of the goals that we've scored, but some of the chances that we've created. A lot of passing around the opposition box. I think Pritchard picks it up from a corner into, I think it was Trey Hume, who was, a right back playing almost as a shadow striker. Plays it back into Pritchard. Pritchard should score. He doesn't. Begovic makes a save, and Dan Ballard, who gets his first goal for the club, I think that is, makes it 2-1. And, at that point onwards, that is when, we're going to get 3 points here.
Yeah. And I'm so excited that it was Ballard as well. I think he's been playing extremely well. He played phenomenal all game yesterday too. But just to be there, a nice kind of composed touch as well. We've seen people miss from those types of range, but for me, Pritchard is who really stood out to me for pretty much the majority of the match. The way he, because he came on after the Ekwa injury.
I mean, I don't know the actual stats, but in terms of, I know there's lots of data and stuff that goes around about, chances created, big chances created.
Yeah.
Since Pritchard came on for Ekwa, I think, around halfway through the first half, amount of chances he made was, I think he was the one that put the cross in for Job, who had a goal disallowed. Obviously later in the game, there's a cross into Hemia, who came on, and, a good chance there. Pritchard, albeit doesn't actually get a goal contribution for his goal for Ballard, but he's, in the right position, gets the shot off. And I said on Twitter at the time, probably going to get overlooked, but I think keeping Pritchard is one of the best pieces of business we've done in the summer.
Absolutely, I love him. And I get why Mowbray brought in Dak as well, because there was a little bit of uncertainty. But what I just like to see is that Pritchard's the type that he realizes now, like, okay, my future's a little bit more settled. Like, I'm obviously not leaving this window, and he just gets after it. And the way he's pointing players in the right direction, he's making the right plays. He's really hard for defenders, I think, to account for as well. Just the way he moves off the ball, the way he sits in the pockets, phenomenal touches too. I think it was one of the goal chances. He just kind of plucked it right out of the sky, just kind of like right over top of him, just plucked it right out, and then was able to just quickly play, a good ball in. But yeah, the one on the goal that resulted from Dan Ballard, he plays a nice little soft touch in, makes a perfect cut right at goal. Realistically, yeah, he should probably score. Keeper made a good play, and Dan Ballard of all people was right there to tap it in, and you just love to see it. And I think there's that one angle from the goal where it's more on Pritchard afterwards, and he runs right up to the crowd and just kind of holds his ear up to the crowd, and Ballard's wheeling out. Like you just want to see players understand what it means, and I think for Pritchard, he 100% knows what it means to play for this club. I think he's come up big for us, big goals and big moments, especially in League One, even in the Championship. And yeah, I will absolutely have time for him as long as he's on our side. Yeah.
And obviously 2-1, kills the game off, really. Like I say, QPR, a man down, have to make changes. They have to chase the game. They have to get something out of it. And what that does is it creates more space for Sunderland to get in behind. And that was pretty much the tale for, the remaining half an hour. Lots of final play passes, final third passes, lots of chances, and the third goal comes in the 81st minute, and it's Adil Wachiche who gets the assist, who came on, and as you said right at the start, it looked like he'd been here a lot longer than he has. Obviously, it's his first game. He's been training for a couple of weeks since the international break, and he seems to have integrated quite well. He gets the assist, left-footed cross into Abdullah Bar, who hits it on the half volley, and he's another player that has shown a lot of promise in games, but not quite delivered in the final third, not quite delivered with that final pass. But, the last two games, Southampton and now QPR, Abdullah Bar he's got Patrick Roberts on the bench.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible. And Ashish, I know it's pronounced, but it is going to be really funny to hear the different pronunciations throughout the season. But yeah, came in, settled in well, like I mentioned. Abdullah Ba. I mean, add Ba to the list of the players that I would say the vocal minority of Twitter just wrote off immediately, saying, "Oh, he's not good enough. He's this and that." And it's just, you just got to give some of these kids some time to settle in, and you can just tell. My only gripe is just like, man, just like cut out one or two step overs from your move, and you'll be, I think, quicker to the point. Right? It's just, sometimes he sits on the ball too much, but he's going to continue to grow into it. The way he tracked that ball in the air, kind of knew exactly how to approach it too off the hop, put it right in the back of the net, was awesome. And the way the fans celebrated, it's just looked like an incredible cap to what was probably a really fun away day. I'm sure Bowers had a good time out there as well. So yeah, it's but yeah, the French connection, Ashish Daba, and then we're gonna have others as well. And it's just things just seem to be clicking, especially in the attacking third. I mean, just kind of go back to my point about the formation, especially going up the man. At one point, with Clark and Bob both kind of in that wing back role. I mean, up front in time, you had Clark, Ashish, Joe, Roberts.
I mean, it was very much a 2-1-7 formation in possession.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, and then I love too in possession seeing Hume move up as well. Yeah. And I think that's really smart because the type of player he is, and he's got to be the best tackler on the team, I think, despite his size or anything like that. And I think he's a pretty normal size, but he got stuck in a couple times with some really good tackles, and just love to see it. So yeah, it's just what a team to watch. It's fun to see. It's like, what's going to happen next? Who's going to step up next or come up with the goal? And it seems like everyone's playing for each other, which is, like I said, all you can ask for.
And obviously, it finishes 3-1. It could have been a lot more. I alluded to that chance that Hamir had towards the end of the game from a cross from Pritchard, but it did finish 3-1, and it's another 3 points, and it takes Sunderland, albeit it makes no difference where you are at the table at this stage in the season, it takes them up to 7th, 6 points behind Preston, who are the league leaders. Interestingly enough, and I think they're the only team.
As we all predicted.
They are, in fact, the only team to have not lost a game yet this season. Obviously, Sunderland Unfortunate, really, not to come away with a win in that game earlier in the season. But it's steady from Sunderland at the minute in terms of league position. Like I say, there's not too much to look into it because if Sunderland win on Wednesday against Blackburn, they can move up to 4th. If you lose against Blackburn, you can drop all the way down to 18th potentially.
Yeah.
Granted, some teams are going to play each other, some not necessarily, but it just shows that the league table doesn't make a difference at this stage, and the only thing that you need to pay attention to is results, of course, but performances as well.
Yep, and even in our earlier losses in the season too, I think we all came away from those games saying we definitely played well enough to win. We played well, just got unlucky with deflected goals, right? It's so that's gonna be tough. But our next 3 games, we have Blackburn, and then I think we have Cardiff, and then Sheffield. Cardiff and Sheffield, who are both pretty, not looking, especially Sheffield, not looking great. Realistically, from 9 points, if we could take away 7 from that, I think then over the next 3 or 4 games, that's when the table is really going to start to take a little bit more shape. And I think we have a good run of fixtures coming up, to be honest. For once, it feels like we started the season really tough with a lot of tough opponents, came out of that well, made it to the international break, and now we can kind of reset and say, cool, this is where we're at, and teams we have ahead of us are in no better shape than us, I would say, at this moment, and the way we're playing. Yeah, if we can get 7 out of these next 9, we'll be in good shape.
We will. Standout player for you from that game?
Oof. Let me think. It's I really liked the way Pritchard played, and I think a lot of it's context too, with kind of what had been going on in the transfer window and things like that. But he came on and completely controlled the game. Like I said, probably should have had an assist early to Job that got incorrectly called off, in my opinion. Probably should have had a goal as well. That just
I'm just to interrupt you again there. Apologies, but it is really annoying not having not necessarily VAR, but substantial replays in the Championship, at least, because that Job goal, there's pictures on Twitter from like 140-degree angle, and people are on the stream screenshotting it, and you never really get a chance to see a proper replay of stuff now in the Championship, which is, granted, it made no difference in the game, and you've got the penalty shout, which obviously we haven't talked about because it didn't have any impact on the game, but this again, there's 2 arguably big decisions in that game potentially went against us, and because there's no VAR, there's no sideline cameras, and a lot of grounds, especially at this level, tend to have 1 or 2 cameras and not many angles of the game. You don't actually come to a conclusion as to whether that goal's offside, that penalty's a penalty, or anything like that.
And with being how tight it was, like, you can't even really be mad at the linesman for it, and that's where I think even VAR now, I do feel like there needs to be some sort of, like, not gray area, but in between, where it's like if it really is just like fraction of a player's boot is offside and that's what's getting called, I think there needs to be a little bit more gray area. But yeah, it's frustrating at times. It is kind of nice though to be able to celebrate goals quicker, because you don't have to kind of sit there and wait for it. But we've even had that too with late decisions, even without VAR. So it's I don't know. It sucks when it goes against you, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to celebrate the goal if it's called that immediately and kind of wheel away that way. But nonetheless, yeah, I think as far as players go, there's probably a few I could have picked out. Probably Dan Ballard would have been another one for me. I just love the way he played and loves the passion, his physicality. But I think given the context and the situation with Echo going out and Pritchard just remaining engaged, and I think that's just a testament that if he does leave, I think any club would be so lucky to have him just because of the type of player that he is. Doesn't let him get distracted. He doesn't just say, oh, well, if I'm not going to play, then I'm not going to care. Like, you can tell he's sharp. Hasn't been slacking off in training or anything like that. And maybe that's just been the plan, but especially now if Echo's going to be out, hopefully not long at all, please. Then if he has to step in, I have no issues with that. And the way he played, the way he set up the goals, and his passion for the fans, like, you just love to see it. So I would go with Pritchard, but he easily could have gone to Ballard, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, Wednesday is the next game. It is Blackburn away, and I think it's on the Sky Red button. So obviously people can watch it. It's a game that obviously last season would have been towards the end a playoff decider. It could still be quite a big game. At any stage in the season, it's not going to be an easy one. But we'll get a podcast out after that game at some point before the Saturday, discussing that game and everything that happens in that. And then again to discuss the next game after that, which I think is Cardiff on the Sunday.
Yep.
So we'll be back then to talk about that game. But until then, we will see you later.
That's all, folks.